The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, I'm Carl Seidel, host of The People's View. The show is sponsored by the Nashua City Republican Committee, and if you like to attend our meetings, they're the second Thursday of every month at 6:30 at the Crown Plaza. And if you want to find out more about our organization, you can go to nashuagop.org to see our website and learn about the events that we have.
Welcome to The People's View.
Hello, and help me welcome Karen Testerman. How are you, Karen?
I'm well, Carl. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Okay, what do we call you now? A political activist, or besides a radio host? You're doing what I'm doing too, but
right.
On the radio.
I am doing it on the radio, and I have a great co-host, Lynn Briggs. And other than that, I'm a county Republican chair, so I sit on the executive committee of the state committee. And I'm supporting my husband because he went and got himself elected as a state rep.
Yeah, how about that? Now he's up there.
That was really a surprise to us.
That's a backdoor getting in there.
Yeah, it is. I told him I gave him name recognition.
There you go. Right. Well, you ran for office, and you've been active with Cornerstone and a whole bunch of other things. And you're always around, so I know I keep bumping into you at a number of different events.
Right. Well, this is a great state. And I really do believe that it's up to our citizens to be involved and to keep it a great state. I mean, it's totally unique. We are the only state in the union that has an all-volunteer legislature, basically, because you only receive $100 a year by constitutional.
Plus mileage.
Plus mileage, right. Well, the mileage doesn't add up to a whole lot because you still have to pay it out in the car bills. But, and then you have to buy your own license plate. So and pay taxes on the $100, right?
That's right. They take a couple bucks out, too. I couldn't believe that.
But it is truly a volunteer job that our 424 legislators do every year. And so this is totally unique in the United States because every place else, they have not only do they have a fewer number of representatives and senators, but they also have, they receive a much larger paycheck in the thousands of dollars. So.
Plus, they have a larger staff and everything like that.
They have offices, they have a staff to go with them, and so forth.
I have a drawer in mine.
and a mailbox, right? Yeah. That's it. But the thing is that when you look at it as being all volunteer, it says a whole lot more about who you are. You're not there for power and money, although you can wield a little bit of power by getting into certain situations, becoming the leader of a group or something like that. But it's not all about power and money. So it really is, it's a very, very special state in that
You have a background, a lot of different backgrounds too, which I think actually adds to the value of the people there because they've experienced it. Most of the people are either retired or using businesses that they can get away for a couple days of the week.
Right.
You know, where it's not a 9-to-5 job. But there are some.
And they're not all lawyers either.
No, definitely. I'm glad about that. Although some of the lawyers have experiences that are really germane to what's happening up there.
Exactly. So.
So what do you think of what's happening with?
Well, we've got a really unique situation in which. The party leadership of the reigning party, let's put it that way, is having quite a challenge.
Right.
And sounds a little bit like Obamacare or Ryan Care, I guess is what we want to call it now. And we had some legislators who said, wait a minute, we've got taxpayers out there who cannot afford to keep increasing the cost of government. And we want to hold it to a certain level so that it's not, you can increase the budget by a certain amount. Last year's biennium budget, I think, is what they're talking about. And then, so they said, we're just not going to go along with this 10.5% growth. We want to keep it down to a cost of living, which is what the Republican platform actually says, the cost of living. Right. So they wanted to keep it there, and they managed to actually stand together and say to the leadership, no, we're not going to go along just to get along.
Now, I think that the Finance Committee looked at it and they saw what money was coming in, and they are limited in how they can save it, So they decided to spend it. But I think there's still ways you can figure out, if it's coming in, let's just put it aside in case the next.
Well, there's the rainy day fund.
Right.
And, but if you don't want to fund the rainy day fund, then, give it back to the taxpayers.
Right.
Because we've got a lot of people out there, people on Social Security or other fixed incomes are not getting these big increases in what's coming back. And the main reason that they're getting the increase is because they did a good thing and they cut business taxes.
That's right.
And encouraged businesses to come in. So I've been thinking about, okay, what is it and where can they really cut? And where is it that government is involved that it shouldn't really be involved? Because you look at our state motto, which is live free or die. We really do believe that it's the individual's responsibility to take care of themselves when at all possible. So, and we've got one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country. And, that's kudos to our government to a large extent, or to our businesses that are employing these people. So what is it that we really expect our government to do? And if you go back to the Founding Fathers, they expected it to basically make sure that they could do business and make sure that they could get from point A to point B in the state. And it is very easy in the state of New Hampshire to navigate. It's much easier than Massachusetts. I remember the first time I got to Massachusetts and I tried because I came from the West Coast, so I was trying to do this, make 3 right turns and get back to where you were. No. It doesn't work here. You could end up 5 miles down the road in another county and everything else in Massachusetts. But in New Hampshire, you do get to where you need to go fairly easy. So they've done a good job there.
And there are a lot of people that are interested in different charities that help out. Right. I'm amazed at how many, here in Nashua, I think there's over 100 different organizations that are helping out. And some of them are finally, one thing that they are doing now is joining together so that they can be more effective in how they treat the person. They just don't have a narrow aspect. Right. They're trying to look at the full help, especially in the heroin addict now, with treating them and making sure that they get longer time with the help to keep them off the drugs.
Right. Well, so it goes back to what is it that government really should be doing, and I think that the churches and the nonprofit organizations that are around that are really doing some really great job on public money. By that I mean they're going out and they're asking individuals to make contributions, not looking to the government to provide that money. And when they do that, they do it very effectively, and they usually use all of it for the benefit of the recipient, Right. And so that's really where I like to see our state go. And I'm even looking at like education, taking it away and centralizing education has done nothing but add to the cost of education. So when they decided that we needed to have superintendents, and so you've got the this is a sore subject up in Franklin where I'm from, because we now have a high school, a junior high school, and a grammar school. We're no longer in a cooperative with another town. So the question is, do we really need to have a superintendent person who's drawing six figures.
Right.
And with him comes the business administrator, possibly an assistant superintendent, plus their support personnel. And all the money that's supposed to be going for education is now going towards personnel costs and benefit costs. And you say, couldn't we take that out and not do that particular part? Well, in 1919, they set up this Department of Education, and it says that you have to have a supervisory and a SAU, a supervisory administrative unit. And so now...
And then they have to look at something to make their time worthwhile, huh?
Exactly. And you go visit the school, and how many support personnel are really there compared to what it used to be when there were, I think, 2,500 school districts in the state of New Hampshire.
Wow.
And they were the school board,
Yeah.
the teachers, and the parents made up that unit, and they worked things out. They worked out salaries and everything else, but the child was still learning and being given the tools to unlock their world. And I argue that back then, we had a 90%, 95% literacy rate, and today we've got 50% of our people who really cannot read the instructions on their prescription bottle.
Yeah.
Now, what's wrong with that? You know, so you want, I don't mind, and I know that our founding fathers wanted us to cherish education, but at the same time, they didn't want us to throw all this money at it and not get anywhere with it and not have.
And involve the people too.
Right.
Have the people
Exactly.
talking about it and helping out.
Right.
I mean, they used to paint the schoolroom with a schoolhouse.
Oh yeah, it was
or something.
amazing some of the things that people would
And
get
they can't
together.
do that now.
Right, because they're not contracted, and they don't have the right credentials, you know. And I've seen even situations where you've got a person who's very talented at relating to a certain age group,
Yeah.
and teaching them what needs to be taught to them, and then be removed actually from that classroom type setting because they didn't have a teaching degree. And what a loss, you know, what a real tragic, because it's not a use of resources, not a good use of resources. So anyway, I keep going back and saying, well, what is it that I want government really to do for me? And I want them out of my hair a whole lot.
Yeah.
So I applaud those people in the representatives in the House who stood up and said, we cannot let you propose this budget that's going to upset really somebody's ability to stay in their house. So, and giving back $50 million to each community was going to be a huge boon to somebody's pocketbook, even if you said it was $50 a person. Gee, that'd be great.
And the way it's structured, we can't really say that they have to do that.
Right.
You give it back to the town or the city or whatever, and they can do with what they want. That was one of the problems, too, that we had, that it didn't seem like, we want to give it back to the people.
Right.
But we don't want them to spend it frivolously either. We want them to take down the tax a little bit, because the taxes have always been going up. There's no, we're lucky if we can just stop them from going up. There's no new fees in the budget, but we still are lucky enough that the economy is going and is generating more money.
Right.
But we don't have to spend it. We can put it away, or we can find a way to give it back to the people.
Give it back to the people. And to a certain extent, doesn't that mean that we have to be able to trust our county and our towns and the people that are administering there? But, and then I look at, so they turned down the budget, and what went to the Senate for the Senate to consider is the governor's budget.
Right.
Well, I have some problems with some of the things that were in the governor's budget. One of them is all-day kindergarten. because we already have children that are going to kindergarten. It's like when Governor Shaheen signed in all-day kindergarten in the first place. We put businesses out of operating because we had all of these preschools and kindergarten schools, and 80% of the children in the state of New Hampshire were already going to these schools. So for 20%, of that 20%, we forgot to include those people who, because of readiness, were not sending their children to school or to kindergarten.
Right.
Or to preschool. I mean, they were keeping them at home because they felt that they needed that environment. And so they lost their ability to make that choice. They lost their freedom, and so it's kind of contraindicated by our state motto, isn't it? About live free. So that there's all-day kindergarten in there, and then there's family planning, and you and I know that family planning is another name for abortion providers. And I just personally, I don't want my money to go there. If the abortion providers want to go out and ask for public dollars to go towards that, and somebody wants to fund that, fine, but don't ask me don't force me to pay it.
Pay for that.
Yeah. And then you know, UNH is probably one of the most expensive state schools around the country. And some of the things that they're doing with our tax dollars, and they get 81 million, I think it is, on a regular basis, even though it's not increased over the years, they're still getting our tax dollars. And some of the things that they're doing over there, I don't think are quite necessary.
And I think a number of the people in the legislature feel the same way, that they have to, well, I don't want to say modernize because that people will take it the wrong way, but there's things that they could do to make their environment a lot better.
Right. And it's not necessarily buildings and carpets and that kind of thing, because they've added some nice buildings over there. It's what they're doing in addition, some of the things, some of the philosophies and belief systems that they're promoting that I think the universities shouldn't be promoting one over the other. So,
So what do you think is going to happen? Do you think the Senate is going to follow which model?
Well, we've got some very good senators this time around. And some very conscientious ones. Senator Daniels, Gary Daniels from over in Milford. We've got Bob Guida up in the Grafton area. We have Senator Sanborn from Bedford. These are all people that are very conscious of what the taxpayer is paying and the challenges that they have in their homes, and trying to stay in New Hampshire and not trying to push them out in any way. I'm always concerned about the senior citizen who has been in their home for years and years and years and have been paying school taxes all that time. And in some ways, you kind of want to say, after you hit 70, maybe you shouldn't have to pay school taxes anymore.
I'll go for that.
Yeah. Maybe you've done your fair share, you know. And maybe it's I don't know. We've got, you passed a wonderful bill a few years ago that allows businesses to give to scholarship companies or organizations so that they can then help people who need help sending their child to a different setting so that they can get the best education for them. That's been a wonderful thing. I mean, the state of New Hampshire does a good job on a lot of things, but I think that in this particular case, I'm really counting on the senators to hold things back. You've got Russell, he's not in the Senate anymore. Oh. Russell went to the Executive Council, didn't he?
Yeah, well, that helps too.
Right. And we have to remember too that our Executive Council is unique in the United States. We're the only state that doesn't have a vice or a lieutenant governor.
Right.
But we have the Executive Council, and the Executive Council is the last elected representatives for the people to have a say on what goes on. So the spending, it's so funny, the spending that finally gets put into the contracts and so forth and goes forward to the executive council for their approval can still get turned down there.
Yeah.
And you know, we talk about the money we, in towns, we go through the budget and we very carefully say this line item goes to the fire department or the fire engine, this line item goes to the school, and you go through the school budget and it's line item by line item. But when you vote on that final number, you're voting on the final number. You're not voting on all of those line items. So the administrator can then take that and spend it how they see fit. They've been given a set amount of money to
There's
do all
some
of these
limitations
things.
on it, but you're mostly right about that they can, and they don't keep track of it the way they should either.
Right,
As you
right.
saw what happened with HHS this last year.
Oh, yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens because, you know, I think about over in Amherst where the people actually said, we do not want kindergarten. And then the superintendent said, oh, look, I found money and hired the kindergarten teachers anyway. That happens, and you can't, there's nothing you can do about it because you're voting on the bottom line.
Right, right. And that's what happened when people were aware of the bottom line. I mean, the timing, the way it went through, they tried to sell the program because they did have a lot of good things in there, and they did cut the money down. They trimmed a lot of stuff out. But the bottom line was just anywhere from 7 to 10%, whatever people are going to compare, because the numbers were flying back and forth. We found out what the total was and everything on Monday, and we had to vote on it on Wednesday. And, you know, if you wanted to write something more very definitive in how you're going to save the money, you really didn't have time to do.
Well, the other thing is and this has been interesting watching this whole process too, was there were some 200 different amendments that were being offered to try and trim the bottom line down to bring it back within the 3% growth. And those weren't allowed to go forward. So in some cases, not even to be voted on, from what I understood.
No, they weren't. They weren't even accepted as an amendment.
Right.
So you couldn't
so
even discuss it.
Your hands were tied to a large extent. The other part of it is now, I guess, that the speaker was caught calling this group of Freedom Coalition type people that was calling them terrorists. And, you know, that was something that when our patriots went out to stand with the Bundys out in Nevada, Joe Biden called them terrorists. And that sticks because now they can be arrested as officially as being a terrorist in some respects.
Well, he claims he just said their tactics were terrorist. So it's that's
you know, I'd love to find the clip and find out what he really did say. But if that is in fact what happened, then he really does need to offer an apology and retract it, because that particular terminology really does carry with it some
inappropriate. I agree.
Well, and it also carries some weight with it, so you have to be very, very careful. Words mean something.
That's right. That's right.
And used by in certain situations can carry with it some very negative ramifications. So we have to be really, really careful.
Oh yeah, I agree with you there.
So it's been very interesting to watch.
It was a shame we didn't get to consider any of those amendments.
Right.
Because I think they were germane, and it was a serious attempt to try to find something that would be, move it a little bit. But no, it was this way or no way.
No way, right.
And
that was sad because I had talked to several of the legislators who were looking at it, trying to be responsible, trying to take into consideration the taxpayers and what they would be seen in their homes. And their whole mantra was, this is what we can, how we can grow government,
Right.
but not overgrow government.
Right.
And this is what we would like to work on. And I understand too that there was, at some point, leadership in this group were supposed to get together and work out a compromise, and then that even got shut down. So it was very frustrating.
Do you think that the governor is going to have more of, I don't know,
Influence on it?
Influence, yeah, that was the word.
I don't know. I think he's put his budget forward.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what the Senate does.
Right.
And I think we've got some strong leaders in the Senate that will take into consideration what our average person is right now struggling with, trying to pay for their own homes, their children, their education, et cetera. If things just keep escalating in price, and your income is not necessarily going up in the same rate. So.
Right. Well, we'll see what happens. I hope to have Gary Daniels on the show next week, so we'll see if we can get an idea where he's
they're
going
going
to
to
take
go.
the finance.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to having the governor look through the administration of his departments too, because I think there's probably enough, I don't want to say fat, but enough where you can get better organization, more effective organization.
Right. Well, a few years ago, didn't they just stop filling some vacant seats or
Yeah.
vacant positions? And if you don't hire somebody new and cut that way, sometimes you can do a really effective job in reducing the
And
cost
if you
of government.
remember back in 2011, we had a group that looked at the effective regulation rules and stuff like that and where things could go. And some of those recommendations are still not fulfilled. So we can do a lot.
Right.
And I'm hoping a governor with a business background looks at that. And as soon as he gets his people in place, it's almost like the federal government.
Right.
You know, it takes him a while before he can even replace the leaders of the different
Right.
departments.
Well, they don't all retire just
Right.
because he becomes governor,
That's
like
right.
they do in some states. So he's dealing with, but he's been very fortunate. He's had some very significant
very good
areas
ones, yeah.
where he's been able to be replacing commissioners.
And I'm
So,
hoping to talk to those people too to see what plans they have.
yeah, it'll be interesting.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be here.
I think so. And that's one of the reasons I ran, because I was hoping we'd have finally a Republican governor.
Right.
So we'll see what happens.
Right.
We live in interesting times, right, Karen?
We do. We
Okay.
do.
Well, thank you very much for being here tonight. And we appreciate it and have you back again later on. Maybe at the end of the session, we'll see where we're going.
Okay, that
All right.
sounds like a plan.
Well, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.